Are you a doctor trying to elevate your practice and make your impact on the world long lasting? Ready to go from a hustler to a CEO? Man, you already know. Welcome to the Michael Buffington Show, the podcast that's transforming the lives of doctors. You ready? Let's go.
Hey, I'm Michael Buffington and welcome back to the show. Today I want to get into some communication hacks and how you can level up your game. And when I say that, everybody loves a hack, especially in today's society. It's like a catchy term. So I hope it got you here because I do have some practical things that I think will really help you level up your game. No doubt about it. And how have I learned these? Well, one thing I'm really good at is identifying patterns in people. That's come over time of really doing deep dives in myself and on myself, looking to find the patterns in me, the patterns that I didn't like, the patterns that I do like, the patterns that I want to change. How do I go about that? So this is a piece of that equation, but I want to simplify it down for you and really talk about how it exists in your life and your business and the real world. Because, wouldn't you agree that communication is a key? I don't think anybody would dispute that communication is almost always at the root of success, and it's also almost always at the root of failure. Sure, there could be other variables, but I can tell you this, I've never seen success happen without great communication. Now that communication, for example, it could be with your spouse, it could be with your kids, it could be with a partner, it could be with the people, your clients, and in our case, it could be with patients. Communication is vital. And quite frankly, I really believe communication is one of those things that it's vital even with strangers. Because if your communication, and when I say communication, that could be well beyond speaking. That could be your body language. It could be, your attitude and your approach. I mean, that's going to say a lot when you walk in a room, when you walk in the grocery store, when you walk in the Starbucks, when you walk in a party. Like that in itself says more than your words many times. So communication is so key, really, for mankind. So if you can agree with me on that piece, we can really move on, because it makes me think of this Key.The skit that I saw years ago. And I'm sure it's still out there and lives forever in video land. But it was on the two of them, known for not being PC, which I'm not necessarily either, so that's cool. And they did this skit on going to a party. And they're texting. They're on their phones. They're texting back and forth. And it starts off something like this. You can look it up. I'm sure it's on YouTube. And it's, look it up, and it was like, hey, are we still going tonight? So one person in this skit is, pretty loose, actually at the time, I think they may have been high, to be honest with you, or at least that, they were portraying it that way. So they're like, hey, whatever, like everything's agreeable, easy. And the other person was on edge. I don't know if you've ever been that person. I know I have. So I'm on edge, and you can lose so much in the context of a text, which I'm referring to in this example. And he's like, hey, are we going tonight? And the other one's like, well, yeah, we're going. And the other one's like, whoa, okay. Well, kind of takes offense to it. This thing escalates, and it goes back and forth for several minutes to the point where one person is like, okay, cool if we're going, cool if we're not going. Like, hey, catch you next time. They went through this whole thing to, oh no, he's all fired up, like, oh, hell yeah, we're going, man. I'll see you there. And, and the one's like, okay, cool, see you there. And the one's like, yeah, I'll see you there. And he shows up literally with a baseball bat, ready to go to war with his buddy. All because of interpretation, or maybe in this case, a lack of context in the text for what he was really trying to say. I know I've done that so many times. I've done it in emails because I don't like to type long ones. I've done it in text because, you leave out a word or two and it changes everything. Emoji will not always save you. That's for sure. It could even take the conversation for another turn. So that was one example. And another one that came to my mind, it was crazy enough, as I was thinking about this show, I went back, yes, I'm this guy. I went back and I have audio recordings of certain times in my life. Like I'll digitally, like sometimes it's text. I do a lot of journaling in that sense. But also if I'm out walking or if I'm training or something comes to my mind, once in a while, I'll hit my voice recorder or my memo and leave it. It's an idea. In 2015, I literally left this as an idea for a podcast that I was running or going to run at that time. Actually, I didn't even have a podcast going at that time. So this show wasn't even a thought. The prior show wasn't even a thought. But I left this, and it's crazy to think it was 2015. And it was about, Paige and I were going down the road. She was driving an Escalade. She hasn't driven one of those in years. And so she's driving down the road. And for weeks, she has been mentioning to me that she couldn't get her phone to hook up with Bluetooth. And me, being me, was so focused on work, so focused on business, I had not stepped up and tried to help my wife. And what I didn't hear in her communication was, help me. Maybe that was by my choice. I don't know. Maybe she could have said it clearer. Not sure. When she hears this, I guess I'll find out, okay? But ultimately, she wanted that done. So she mentions it that day. And after 6 or 8 weeks, something like that, of this, being mentioned a few times and kind of glossed over by one or the other of us, she mentions it, and I'm in the car with her. I instantly go, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And I start to touch the screen and get past the prompts of don't do this while you're driving. And, I'm just going to uninstall. I'm going to unhook the Bluetooth from her phone and just reestablish the pairing. That's all. And she at first was like, what are you doing? I'm like, hey, I'm just going to handle this. Just hang on a second. And within a matter of like 30 seconds, I hooked back up the Bluetooth. Problem solved. This had been something that I got to believe she had thought about numerous times over 6 or 8 weeks. And so my question became, when I'm listening to this audio of this, and I'm thinking about it, how often we create these situations that are so challenging, and we make them harder because we didn't communicate clearly. I just had a friend that went to a marriage retreat of sorts, and he and his wife have been together a long, long time. And he came out of that and was like, I said some things, when guided, I said some things, and the person in charge, right, running the retreat, I don't know, it was the counselor, whatever their title was, they said, okay, repeat that back to your husband. And you may have heard this kind of approach. She repeated it back, and he's like, it was like Greek to what I said. And he was like, my words were literal, hers was off. Well, she didn't think so. And therefore, one reason to be at a marriage retreat, because communication is so key. And I can't stress it enough. And it's one thing to know these, but really, what is the cost of all that? The cost of the miscommunication, like it could be a failed business, which would be horrible because you're not communicating with your customers. You're not communicating with your team. If you have a team, you're not communicating clearly, even your message. This happens in chiropractic sometimes. You're not communicating your message to the community of like who you are. What are you known for? What are you good at? What do you want to take care of? How can you serve them? You're doing a really poor job of letting everyone know. You can end a friendship. I've done it. I've ended a friendship over, looking back on it, was really a stack of miscommunications that got so much emotion involved and so many feelings that it was outweighing the facts. It was outweighing the facts. You hear me talk about that all the time. The facts of the situation were irrelevant at that point because there were so many emotions involved, which is exactly what happens when communication goes awry. So, I really think of like, what's the possibility? Like, what if we actually listened more? I've heard my pastor say it. I've heard mentors and coaches say it. It's probably been posted all over social media, but we're given, 2 ears and 1 mouth, 2 ears so we can listen twice as much as we speak. Now, the irony of that is here I am speaking to you. You're listening. I hope you're absorbing it. I hope it's meaning something to you that you can then go and apply. I've been guilty of this many times, right? We all have that tendency, or I believe a lot of us have the tendency to want to get in our words. We want to get in our belief. We want to get in our say and have a say-so in the matter. So we're quick to do it. Well, while we're formulating that thought, we're not hearing them. This is one of the areas that I think I got really, really elite at in practice over the years. I guess my patients, if they listen to the show, they could comment and tell me if that's true or not. But I would listen much more than I would speak. So much so that they would often say, wow, you're really quiet. Well, I was listening and I didn't have a lot to say, because if I heard what their situation was, if I knew what was going on for them, that helped me to connect to do what I was really there to do and get them the results that they were there for. Now, whether it's a patient on the table getting a chiropractic adjustment, or whether it's in any type of business, or whether it's in your marriage, your relationship with your kids, or how about this communication? The communication that you have with yourself. How's that communication? Is it really, just drudgery? Is it, and I don't know where I pulled that word from, but sometimes it feels like that because it's kind of dark and it's kind of damp and it's kind of sucks. And you tell yourself these things, and with that communication, how's that relationship going to work? And if you don't have a spiritual relationship, how's that going to go? Are you going to find the wisdom? Are you going to find the guidance? Are you going to find the direction? Are you going to find the purpose? Probably not. Or it's going to be more work than it needs to be. So you can truly level up your game by doing these things. And, one of the ways I do this, so here's a little bit of the tactical piece of this that I've learned painfully over time, and that's how do the people that you work with or work for or work for you, it doesn't matter. And that could be, again, I talk about it in a business sense, but it could also be at home. How do they communicate? And when I say that, you don't say, well, they're really horrible at it, Michael. That's not what I'm getting at. We all know that exists, and I've been that guy. But how do they communicate? Do they communicate best face-to-face, verbally? Do they communicate better on the phone? Do they communicate via text? Yeah, some of that may be generationally impacted. I know that's for sure with my kids and that generation more so. We didn't even have that option, right? We were still carrying around a phone in a bag, and we thought that was cool. Do they communicate via email? Now, some things require different levels of communication. I'm an email guy for a couple reasons. One, when it comes to business, I want it documented. I think it's appropriate for business. And also, it's analogous, meaning I can send it. You can receive it when you choose to. Some of you, boom, you're sitting on it. Others, you have times like I do where it's blocked when I check it during the day. I don't just have this constant drip of distraction and focus, and that's a whole nother show on how that takes away your focus. And I know many of the chiros that I've worked with over time, right? This can be a challenge for you. When you're in patient care, you're in patient care. When you're not, you're not. You don't mend the two. And I know you definitely, you don't want a chiropractor doing that. You wouldn't want a surgeon, turning around from the table and checking their email. So, but how do they communicate? Now, while I reference that as a tool in business, the reality is I know right now, and it'll be funny if they hear this, but people in one of the companies that I'm a part of, when I talk to any of the other C-suite and anybody on the leadership team, I know how they communicate. So the cat is out of the bag. I know some, they want to call me. They want a voice call. If I text them, they will call me. If I email them, they will call me. So I have learned they want to talk. I tend to avoid that because I'm trying to manage my schedule, but I know that about them, so it just is what it is, and I have to meet them sometimes halfway. Some text. If I text them, I will get immediate action, right? Their phone's in their pocket, it's on their hip, it's in their hand. I will get immediate response, and they want to do that. Matter of fact, sometimes they will put a book in the text, and I'm like, oh my God, number one, my thumbs don't work as fast as my kids. It will take me too long with too much detail to try to add attachments and all the things that may be required to do this. So let's copy and paste, whatever. Now I'm decent, okay? I'm not, it's not like I don't do those things, but it's not really the way I want to drive communication. However, I know if I want something from them and I need it in a hurry or I need it a result, that's going to be the way to do it. Flip side, I know who's going to communicate via email. I know that they're going to ding back. And here's another little one that they don't always know, but I'm going to tell you, and I actually think it works really well. I schedule emails. So if you are on a service or have the ability, which most email services now have that ability, if you number one, if I'm working on a Sunday, yes, I still put in hours on a Sunday. If I'm working on a Sunday, I may schedule a bunch of things on Monday. I don't care to drop it on everybody else on a Sunday. I'm just prepping for my week, cleaning up some things and, getting ahead, quite frankly, on what I want to accomplish. So in that, I'm scheduling the email whenever I want them to respond. Meaning I will wait. I may schedule the email instead of, scheduling at 5 a.m., which I could be up sending an email at that time. I'm not going to schedule it then because I don't want a response back at 5:10 a.m. Or I may not want a response back at 7:30. Now they could do that, but if I schedule what I know, if I schedule a block or several of my key emails at 10 a.m., I know those people that I work with in various capacities, they will respond within an hour. So if my time block, again, whole nother show, if my time block of my day and week wants them to respond in that period, that's when I will schedule it. And it happens 90% of the time. Now, again, I'll get into those tactics maybe another time. If those are helpful, make sure you let me know, and I'll go a little deeper on how I set up my day, how I set up my week, etc., to maximize that. Because this is all about a communication hack, but that's makes a huge difference in a productivity side of things, let alone just managing relationships. So what is a key relationship in your life that you want to be better at it? Like you need it to be better or you want it to be better? That's the first question for today. What is it? I know it's on you right now. Boom, it's right there in your head. That key relationship could be a kid, could be your spouse, could be a coworker, could be a business partner. Whatever it is, identify that. Second thing, what is, along those lines, the same thing for business. What is the key person? I already mentioned the business partner. So, because guess what? Business is life. Life is business. It will affect both. I've talked to you before in shows about you can't compartmentalize that. So just know that. Identify those two things. And I literally made myself a note here today. I don't often go off of notes, but I wanted to make sure I covered this in a way like you got to make a decision. And that's an easy thing I don't need a note for, but you got to make a decision on what are you going to do about it. Are you willing to be consistent to do it for a period of, say, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? Are you willing to do it long enough that you actually shift the pattern and get a better result? Because when I talk about how communication can level up your game, this is the way. And it's really why I have the frameworks that I train people on and that I use myself and that I teach. I need a framework. I need a framework to consistently on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis communicate certain things to certain people, including to myself, communicate to myself in a way that I level it up. It's more clear, it's more concise, it gets better results, confidence, clarity, certainty, all grow with it. That is the key. So ultimately, I hope this has served you. I think these simple things can make a massive difference in not only the energy that you put out, but the energy that it takes for you to produce what you want to produce, profit the way you want to profit, and then, of course, protect the things, including your time, as well as your money, from people that have a plan for your stuff that is not matched up with your plan. Because ultimately, and I say it here every time, and I'm going to continue to say it, I want you to learn something daily, live it fully, lead boldly, and just never, ever forget that you are your legacy. Share this up with somebody that needs it. See you soon.